Perfect. So, very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So my name is Harshad. I'm the Global Higher Education Director at QuestionPro. And my job is to help universities make, data-driven decisions with research and survey software. I've been there in the space for the last 10 years, helping universities globally. And about me, I've been here, I've spent most of my childhood in South Africa. So to all my fellow South Africans, it's homecoming for me. So thank you so much for having me here. All right. So I'd like to go ahead and just go ahead and talk about today's panels. So we have our topic about the future of learning and education and how is AI influencing that. We have got an amazing panel over here who are, learning and breathing AI and also talk about education in the space. And I just want to go ahead and give them, an opportunity to go ahead and introduce themselves. So over to you, Andiswa.
Good afternoon. Harshad, as much as you say you are from South Africa, Durban, I know you studied in Durban. We had a privilege of meeting them in India. So we've got a longer relationship with QuestionPro as the university of more than 8 years or 10 or so. So they're part of the family. You're being used by our researchers. Once again, my name is Andiswa. Looking after academic systems, which is your learning management systems, your research systems, your library information systems, and your workplace, your day-to-day Microsoft suite. So you may understand what my world is like now. It's been turned down. It's upside down, but very interesting because most of you are students and are using ChatGPT, are copying and pasting. Every time you see an advert, you want to buy that thing that dehumanizes it, and you want an academic experience. So we're going to talk about that journey because you're not only as employees, you attend training and you use these tools. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Sithole. I'm the founder and chairman of OneConnect. We are a tech company born and bred in South Africa, but we're truly a Pan-African company in that we exist across the continent with the full aim of democratizing education in the continent. I've got a vision and a firm belief that every single African child ought to have access to good quality education independent of their financial status or their geography within the continent. But democratization typically seems to suggest politics, and I'm no politician. I'm merely a technologist, and I just want to leverage tech in bridging that divide that exists between those that have and those that have not. We are around 17 at the moment, and we have kids that are sitting in villages somewhere. They also have got a right to good access to quality education. And UNESCO speaks about the SD goals that they have for 2030 around education. And we are driving that change in ensuring access to good quality education. So it's a great pleasure to be with you today and to have a conversation around AI. Interesting enough, I'm actually currently enrolled at Wits, and my research is on plagiarism. I'm writing a research on how we can pick up if assignments submitted by students were actually written by AI or not. and I was thinking about, I think I need to change that. And we need to allow students to engage with AI. But anyway.
Thanks, guys. So my name is Nathan. I'm the regional director for Middle East and Africa over at Instructure, who are the makers of Canvas LMS. We work with a lot of different universities all over the world. Cambridge, Oxford, Stanford, and obviously Wits. So Rogers, you're taking, I think, some courses on Canvas, which is pretty cool. Just getting to sit down with different, people like Andiswa and just understand how are these students, gonna, essentially use AI, and how are we able to make their lives a lot easier and the lives of teachers too, right? So yeah, pleasure to meet you all.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Seke. We give people the age, so you understand where I'm coming from. I'm a CX specialist and a CRM advocate and change manager within the Department of Business Intelligence. So we look after your analytics, machine learning, AI. We build model, early warning system, and so forth. So I'm here to share the piece of cake that we've been making in our premises in Braamfontein. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. So, we've been talking about AI over here, right? And then it's all about student learning experiences, students using ChatGPT to get their homework done, or, and all that. And yet we still have professors who don't know how to share their screen using Zoom, right? They're still finding their buttons on where do we share it, right? Yeah, so that's kind of the world that we're living in. And, and nowadays we see that it's being introduced to everyone across the space, and education is where everything starts, right? So, I'd like to go ahead and introduce, kind of ask, my first question to Ms. Andiswa. So, how do you see AI transforming the way universities are kind of managing that digital learning environments and campuses, kind of, looking at these ecosystems and adopting them?
Thank you, Harshad. Before I answer maybe the how part, I just want to say, in my introduction, I said our world has been turned. Whoever is a technologist looking at technology, now you need to look at different aspects of your data. When you collect using QuestionPro survey tool, where is that data stored in my organization? Who's using it? Who's having an access to it? You have to look at the issues of cybersecurity. Who's having an interest? Can they come through those guidelines which I've not read on ChatGPT when I did go and check on the free version? Also the experience of student. But think about it now, when you're going to write an email, it's so easy. You simply go and put a prompt. All of a sudden, you are clever, and you can pick up, I hope you are well, dear man, kind regards, which is the same thing. But instead of you spending 20 minutes in trying to think, coming with English words, you can do that even if your English is not correct. But now, we're speaking of ethical use of AI within higher education and even within organization, because you exposing these tools, the third application, if the environment is not secure enough. Your organization is at risk, your data is at risk. So those are things that are important, that when we align with the products, you need to make research. But also I want to move quickly, because we're speaking of teaching and learning, which is higher education, which affects you, and it's going to affect you as parents when one of your child has been expelled at school, or their assignment, you're being called to say there's an issue with academic integrity, they're not going to be expelled. We have to really look now at the assessment, because students, they're clever. They put an essay, they put questions, they come with all the possible answers. It doesn't have to be 80%, or 100%, but you can still get 80 and 60. But also, most of you are doing research on this side. Who's keeping your research? The paper that you put there, where is it stored? Are you not going to look when you are saying about to do your final thesis session, and someone said this part of your work has been published? So what's in such an interesting space, and think about it, skilling and reskilling. I know I'm talking a lot of things, but I'm trying to build a picture. Each and every organization, if you've done that diploma in corporate communication, I'm just going to make an example, and you're not upskilling with short courses, go on you. Because you're going to be given 2 hours to do a report, and you are not going to finish that report. And you wonder, why are the people, they do these things? This says us as people here, as leaders, as our organization, we need to start having this conversation to say, for productivity, for experience, for doing things better, we need not to be scared of AI. Instead, we need to learn and know. It's a moving target, that one I can tell you. And also it changes our jobs. People are worried that this may change my job. It is going to change your job if you're seated or if you're not having this conversation within your organization. So what do we talk about as higher education to think it's changing higher education only? It's not. It's changing each and everyone's lives. Now, coming back just about to close when it comes to higher education, how we've approached as Northwest University. Firstly, it's not something that we can do it in corners. We have to have an artificial intelligence working group, which started as a working group, which is AI Council. And it had a number of people from technology, academic integrity, professional students, where we had to be frank and talk about the framework. And also trying to come up to say, what is it that we think is acceptable? Let me tell you, today you may talk about ChatGPT, tomorrow there's another tool that is so special, then there's another tool. All of us, it's not about stopping, but it's also involving the learners to say, come, join us, because as you were saying, that these students, these learners, they know better than most of us. Hence, that we need to involve in the conversation. But this also brings to say, who are you employing today in your organization? Are you only employing the over 40? So we have questions that when we sit with our managers saying these are the tools that are needed, these are the learning management system that we need to do, we need to have that conversation. I'm not going to talk about change management because we are going to talk about it. But I also want to, I'm sure with time I'm going to have to talk about the issues of the security posture of your organization, because it's what we need to talk about. Also to say the data, the classification of data, because it's not about only consuming. Now AI is changing. There's to be something that is individual working within organization, even as the tools that we're using like QuestionPro, they need to be able to talk to the system that we're having. Maybe let me stop there. I'm sure as much as we go to the question, then I'll go specifically, but I wanted to give an overview to say it's not one thing, it's many, it's life on its own.
Very well said, actually. So one of the things that I've seen Northwest University do really well is like, they look at companies like QuestionPro as their tech partners, right? They want us to be embedded in their systems, right? They want to work with what's happening next, what should we move ahead, and what should we develop, right? So one of the things that we've got feedback from Northwest is like, okay, what do we see student experiences, how can we see this change happening in student learning experiences, right? So very well said in this one. So my next question is to Mr. Rogers. In terms of innovation, right? What are the emerging trends do you see in AI, in learning management platforms, or maybe any other technology solutions in higher education? And what are those new innovations that you're actually seeing in the marketplace at this point?
It's an interesting space. Either institutions or technology companies have to embrace AI, and we're seeing that from a tech perspective that OEMs and tech companies are embracing AI. And how it is being embraced at the moment is looking at bringing in efficiencies to the customers, since we talk about CX here, to the customers. And if you look from a higher education, who are the customers for higher education? It's students and probably the instructors. And I've seen in those two areas specifically, there's been quite an interesting development around that area. One that I can mention, it's, if you think of a designer of a curricula, for example, somebody that has to, you need to teach a course on let's say on coral reef animals, for example, if you're a lecturer, thinking about putting together the lesson plan and putting together the course work, it takes quite a lot of time. If you can ask any teacher, they will tell you that that is an area that is quite time consuming. And we're seeing the use of AI, to reduce that time. We've got AI design assistants that are being leveraged and utilized. You can just give it a subject, and based on that subject, it can go get material from a specific source that you may have within the organization or within the institution, and it'll give you an outline. And then you can then, still as a lecturer, be able to update where you need to update. So that's from a lecturer or from a teacher's perspective. It reduces the time that they spend on doing that, and they can focus on what matters most, which is spending time teaching with the student. From the other customer, who is the student themselves, we're seeing an introduction. With generative AI, we're seeing quite a lot of introduction at the moment on how you can enhance teaching, how you can enhance, not teaching, but how you can enhance learning from a student's perspective. So we're seeing things like, they're utilizing AI at the moment to build personas, AI personas. So let's say I want to teach music. For example, you can create an Elvis Presley persona, right? And through AI. and the student can then engage with that persona,
Right.
and not getting a yes or no answer, but that way it will help them in terms of expanding their thinking on how music should be written or should be done. And this can apply to any persona, really. So utilization of personas, it's something that we're seeing that's coming in from a teaching, from a learning perspective to enhance student success, but also to enhance student experience, which is something that's quite important.
Great, perfect. So, when you talk about experiences, right, like one of the key things when we want to adopt experiences at scale, right, there's always kind of an aspect of ethical considerations. How do we look at those? Is it really good to adopt AI for students? Are they going to be overwhelmed? Are they going to be way too dependent onto it? But, how are systems like Instructure kind of helping, organizations or, universities actually to make that change on adopting AI? And how is it doing? How is Canvas kind of putting that, change across all the universities in the globe?
Yeah, I think in terms of change adoption, what's interesting is, and I'm sure my university, compatriots over here will know that universities and higher ed institutions are actually quite change averse, which is quite interesting. So what often needs to happen is, one needs to listen from the universities themselves, right? So hearing that feedback and not just doing AI for the sake of AI, but actually hearing what the professors from, like I said, Oxford, Stanford, it's very difficult to tell them what to do, right? They're the experts, probably the most intelligent people in their field. And now all of a sudden you need to be telling them how to use AI, right? And like you were using that Zoom example. So it's actually understanding what they need and what they want, and then utilizing that and almost reverse engineering that, right? And then also the other component is what Andiswa was talking about, on the students are the ones pushing the boundaries on this, right? They're the ones that almost like brought AI to the forefront of all of our minds because of the plagiarism thing and all of this, right? So, that they're also the ones that are pushing the envelope when it comes to that. So, yeah, look, this is obviously a huge topic when it comes to that. In terms of Instructure, different ways that we're helping, like you spoke about equitable access, so that's always at the forefront of universities, and we use things like AI translation to make sure that the education that students are receiving in these first world countries essentially are the same as what they're receiving in the favelas and the townships, throughout the different continents, right? And then even things like summaries, and obviously Elvis was sorry, not Elvis, Elvis, yeah. But I was like, I really would love Elvis as my music teacher, but yeah. As Rogers was talking about, is that unique, essentially, approach to each student and having that tailored experience and that tailored learner journey for them, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So, one of the things that I've seen is like, universities are definitely resistant to change, right? And I've got an expert over here who has been dealing with change management for almost 2 decades, I guess, right? So, Jordan, my question to you is, Andiswa talked about an AI council at the university, right? I think so. You've been an AI plus innovation plus strategy council for Wits, right? So can you tell me, like, in your experience, what does it really take to change that mindset of bringing in AI to the leadership in higher education? And
Thank you, Harshad. I just wanted to lay the foundation about what my co-panelists have mentioned here, especially around the customer. At the university, we don't use the word customer because knowledge is not for sale. Yes, people will ask me, but we pay school fees. School fees are paid for me to sustain my family because I work to ensure that the infrastructure and everything is running for you. So that is something that I want you, when leaving this event, you go with. That's why we call ourselves constituent, because everyone play a role or a part in the teaching and learning journey for each one. a parent who supports us sending the kid to our university, despite the fact that we're going to be increasing the fees this year, but the parent is still adamant to pay that fees. That is a very nasty. And now moving into AI, and I'm glad that my colleague and they are doing quite a good stuff at Northwest University. I always push people to picture the Rogers adoption curve. Where do we find ourselves as a country? First, where do we find ourselves as an institution of higher learning? Are we losing our mind through the curve of technology, or are we still advocating for originality from our students? AI is dangerous because of the plagiarism and all these things. But where is that human touch element in your work? Are you proud of producing a work that 90% of the content has been AI-generated stuff? Do you even take time to review the content? So, when you come to higher education, we are so adamant to resist the change, saying that we still want the critical thinking from our student. Yes, the tool, technology is there to help us maybe speed up the process, as Sithole mentioned. However, the outcome, the final outcome, still remains a problem within the university sector. We understand AI, and we're bringing AI maybe in repetitive tasks for admin staff to service our students much better. And we also want our students to be clever enough to produce a job that an AI tool can confirm that this is the original work. No one has done some similar job or has written similar content elsewhere in the world. Because we're just getting the front end. The back end, those machines, those big machines, the quantum that run in the back end to produce those content. They're going everywhere in the world. But strategically, we are going on a very slow scale. We don't want to call ourselves innovators. Maybe it's going to be too much. And people will say that, why vet people always break themselves to be the best? No, we are not in that debate. But among the university, I think Andiswa will confirm that, VET was among the pioneers of building an AI model of machine learning called early warning system. Why the early warning system? The machine understands the pattern of the student. It tells us which student is 100% or 80% likely to fail. And then as an institution, we provide the support. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, the early warning system is really good, right? Like, and think about it, like having information well in hand on like, okay, this is something that I need to focus on, or this is what I need to learn on, right? But on the other side, right, when we talk about IT, right, as a leader in IT, I'm sure that there might be situations when you're adopting AI, you've got IT people pulling up their hair saying that, hey, wait a minute, how do I get professors to adopt it, right? And students, on the other hand, they're loving it. They're probably trying to say like, well, okay, I've got something much more personal. The experience looks much more resonating. So what, according to you, is kind of the key challenges that you're currently facing adopting it?
You know, I must say from the IT perspective, we're excited. I'm one of the people that are excited about this journey. And I'm going to speak because I also supported academics who are at times resistant about this journey. Because we've got professors, their professorship is only about academic integrity, checking who's stealing what, who's... So we are taking, like, they have to change the narrative because there are the professors who are looking at the integrity of what you are submitting. But now we're saying, wait a minute, how many courses are still relevant in this day and age? You've taken your kids to varsity now. They are doing BA, BSc, social sciences. Even the doctors are struggling in South Africa to get jobs. But now in the market, there are new jobs. prompt engineer, creating creativity. Because I can tell you, if you ask the machine the right questions, you keep on. You know, when you were talking about, you talked about the different data set. You keep on asking the question. You don't have to sweat. My mom used to say there are few alphabets. You've got only how many? 24 alphabets, but you keep on changing the words. And we always think other people are clever than another. But I think what we are changing now, the narrative was that for years, some of us were taught at school to cram, to memorize. It's no longer working in the workplace. In the workplace, they need a return on investment, the outcome. As long as you're ethical, your journey, like what we saw in that estate, you need to be creative enough, which is creativity within AI. But I think what I can share, it's what is happening. I want to confirm that you cannot go, even if you're an organization, this journey alone. You need partners. You need partners like OneConnect. You need partners like, because for example, we don't have people that are seated there at Silicon Valley thinking of these ideas, but they've got time to invest on that. How many of our organizations have looked at our strategies? IT strategies, information strategy, data strategies, cybersecurity strategies? We're not. Instead, the results are needed one day. The day you hear that there is a crash in a system, we all sweat. We don't know who's having our data even now. So where I want to go is that change will always be there because it's part of human nature. But all what we can do as organizations is to collaborate. Collaboration is key. You must be able, and it doesn't end on the higher education. I attended the Microsoft AI tour. There I saw Milk Park Education, I saw the All Mutual. There are a lot of lessons learned. It doesn't have to be in higher education. Because when we adopt, as I'm about to stop, when we adopted AI, we didn't go bang to the whole university. We had to look at one department, look at aggregating the risks. But you find that there are professors who've been doing this because we think now because of ChatGPT, that's AI. That's not. Most of the learning management system, they've got AI embedded in it. Yeah. So it's high time that we just sit one step back. This is not the animal. This has been part of us. Instead, we need to wake up and do the right thing. If it means you have to ask a student to teach you on how to do your job better, because a young employee is going to come and use a free version of QuestionPro and beat you in your job.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, yeah. So, my question to you, Mr. Rogers, is like, from a tech leader's perspective, right? Like, I know we're looking at, kind of the key factors where universities are kind of considering, what do you think they are actually looking at locally in South Africa before they consider adopting AI?
Yeah. Can I take one step, if you allow me, please? I would like to challenge higher education, actually institutions of learning. Let me just put it like that, right? I would like to challenge them, and I would like to challenge policymakers. I'm an employer.
Right.
Data scientist was not a job.
For sure.
Today, those people are in high demand. We need them, right? They didn't matter before. It was not a job, right?
Right.
We can sit here and say, as institutions of higher learning, we're not going to enable or allow our students to talk to AI because we want them to have critical thinking. Critical thinking is required, absolutely.
Right.
But we need to embrace it. Because if we don't, the employer, the reason why institutions of higher learning exist is to train and skill up the next employer or the next employee.
Right.
But now that next employer and that next employee cannot exist outside AI. DeepSeek the other day just changed the way in which we're viewing AI. They got the whole world shaking with the fact that they were able to bring in a large language model at a fraction of a cost that an ordinary person can now download an LLM like that and be able to configure and have it used. Now we can put our heads in the sand and say, no, we don't want this. Or we can relook at policy from a teaching and learning perspective and say, do we perhaps, as educators and as policymakers, need to review the 1972 policies that we are using to train students for 2025 and 2030? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep, for sure.
That's what has to happen. Now, institutions, as Sisi was talking about, Andiswa was talking about, partnerships are crucial. Collaborations are crucial.
Right.
Why is that? Because she may not necessarily have the budget to have a huge IT department to come up with all these innovations that they need within the university, but she still needs to consume those services and solutions that as OneConnect, our focus is exactly that, is to come up and put together innovative solutions for the space. But we need to challenge the policymakers and we need to have a review of this. Perhaps we need to review the way we assess students, right? And we need to review that whole assessment process. So we shouldn't be assessing how much are you memorizing that book.
Right.
Look, I've got fans here. People are supporting here. So we need to perhaps review what we are assessing, and are we assessing that things are being consumed, are being learned, and that information that is being learned, can it be applied? And maybe we need to be looking at assessing application of the information rather than the retention of the information.
Right.
That's
Very well said. Very well said. Go ahead.
I just want to add something. This is another dynamic. When you've got a vacancy in your organization, people and culture or HR, they need M+4, M+5, M+ whatever. But they never look at the certification. Whereas you find what is driving innovation in today's age. It's certification. You need that person who understands the application of ethics in AI, which is a certificate.
Yeah.
You need that person who understands cybersecurity. It can be the certificate. But also now our employers, when they write the specification looking for something, they write they want this 4-year degree, this whatever. By that time, all these things were not there. So maybe that's also the conversation that we need to have, to say, are we employing right people with the right skills at the right time?
Great. So, my next question to you, Nathan, is like, when we're talking about costs, right, going down with the use of AI, how is that going to, is that going to help education adopt it more? Do you see it, becoming much more welcoming when we introduce it to higher education? How do you see that going?
Yeah, no, interesting. I think in terms of the cost, that's, kind of ties back into equitable access to education. And just what you were saying now, that previously the flow from essentially higher ed to university was very linear into the job space, whereas now it's way more circular, right? You're essentially going from, let's say, a high school degree and then going into maybe a TVET, maybe a RTO, maybe going into higher ed, and then after that, then that continuous education, right? So essentially, it's not just people relying on a degree, but the workplace and the demands of the workforce dictating what students are going for. Which, with that being said, being able to lower the cost when it comes to education and these kind of things, that just means that people are continuously upskilling themselves. That it's not a once-off event. That they're getting a degree. But that they're continuously educating themselves, right? And that they can do that at a reasonable price, right? And then I think also for universities, what they're finding is they want to expand their offering, right? So they don't want to just, undergrad, postgrad, et cetera, but they're coming up with innovative ways to make sure that we're upskilling more than just those people that are finding degrees. So yeah, I think that plays a huge role in that.
Great, perfect. So, one of the things that I've been really curious about is like, what's the future looking like, right? ChatGPT came in a year ago or 2 years ago, and everyone got really quickly hooked onto it, right? I know there's still some people who still haven't used it, right? But from your perspective, Jordan, like, what is the future? What's 2030, for example, looking like?
before I speak about the future, because we've been challenged by a technologist, I just want to... Guys, I have to protect the most conservative organization in the world.
Right.
You know, we don't market our offering like a corporate company will do. We know what we have, and the student know where to find us. That is established, and that is the way to go. As much that we can adopt AI, we were not talking about resisting the adoption. We were talking about the strategy with the adoption. That's why I refer to Roger's adoption curve. Right. You have the innovators, you have the later adopters, and whatever the theory is. And those theories have been developed by professors. Some of them still understand and support and argue about the theory because it's still applicable today. But let's take AI adopters from a lawyer perspective. You can go to ChatGPT and ask him all the questions to prepare your case. But ChatGPT will not get the human feeling of the person that is sitting there in the court of law with you, the one that you want to defend. So, as much that we can talk about the adoption, we must also be mindful of the human touch and the humanity. That's why I partially agree with you. But on talking on the review of the curriculum, I fully agree with you. Why? Because there is a very big gap between the graduate that we produce and the demand on the marketplace. And this conversation started 10 years ago with the IT pragmatic, what is it called, shift, whatever the theory came there. Each and every 10 years we have to review because the IT world comes with a very transformative innovation. But that never happened. But just to give people perspective, in order for us to have a new course approved at the university, it goes through a very long process. Because psychologists also have to come in place to assess the usage or the why of this introduction. These companies, big companies, they don't hire people with certification. They will ask you, don't you have a university degree? Because they value the critical thinking that our students go through the process.
Right.
The future, Harshad, to respond to your question, the future looks uncertain because of the fear of the unknown.
All right.
That is, I can put it there and I can challenge anyone. No one saw Aval coming into the South African market to take Mercedes-Benz and BMW out. Now people talk about Aval. People want a Jet2 or something like that. You see, people are no longer interested to buy a Range Rover because they have a Jayco or something like that. So, the future, there is no clear indication or clear direction as I'm sitting here right now with you to say that the future look like this. But our future look bright. Let's embrace technology, but be mindful of the next person and how we consume it. If it's not dangerous for the next person or next generation, then it's fine. Because we have to think of the legacy. What are we leaving when we will be all leaving this world? What other generation will inherit from us?
Very true. Very true. So, this actually calls it a quick wrap, but it's right. It's very uncertain, right? We don't know what AI is going to bring up in the next few years. We don't know what it's going to be called either. But yeah, it's changing, right? And obviously, education is shaping, the future, and AI is just going to be there to assist. That's what, kind of what I see from here. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up for a few questions, probably just one from the crowd, just in case if there's any. One question. I think we get it. All right, good, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.